you know, anywhere from like 90K to 120K for an adult mystery. Words are any worse metric than what some people said pages. Maybe you could even count by arcs. If we're getting into the meat, the meat and the potatoes. I don't think I've ever seen anyone shaming slower writers, but I can see how if larger word counts are rewarded during chats where we're all surprised someone got a huge word count, or on videos that get the most clicks as I wrote 100,000 words in 10 days or whatever. I can see why that would be the message that someone might receive. I think a lot of it goes back to the old adage of you can't edit a blank page, so sometimes just getting down the words is better. I'm reading Zen and the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury, and he makes the point that he thinks getting a lot of words is good because, you know, you have to do things a lot of times before you start mastering that thing, and the repetition is helpful. Obviously, you hope that those people are, you know, taking in the craft and analyzing their work and all this other stuff, but I do think inevitably as you're writing more words, you will improve. Maybe some people don't need to write as many words as others to improve, and that's cool too. I'll say a lot of the reasons that I share the word count is because I can't always share what plot point I covered if I'm not wanting to tell someone everything. When I'm actually talking to people on the phone or people who know more of the story, I usually say I got through Act 2, or I got through this emotional arc and now I have to do this, this, and this. Like when I think of my story on my own in terms of what I've done, I don't think about it in words. Words is just an easier metric to share with people quickly. And often having a word count goal in my head correlates to a certain point in the story, which is really where I want to achieve. For what it's worth, I think 10K days are fun, but I also can no longer do them, and my word count goals are much smaller than they have been in the past. You shouldn't publish a book YA if it has any sex scenes in it. It should be in the adult genre no matter what. I disagree with this. I do appreciate it as the unpopular opinion though. I think some of this is because new adult is being classified as YA, or there's a very confusing range of what is YA. Sex in general, I do not think should be the marker. There are tons of young adults having sex, and I think books should be true to some of that experience. Yes. So much of the creators fall into the same demographic, white women in their 30s, and it's difficult to find diverse content since these seem to be all the big channels. Kind of tired of seeing the same kind of person talk about the same things on this platform. Absolutely. This is a problem not just in the Authortube world, but the booktube world and just the YouTube world at large. I think we're also, I'm not on TikTok, not really, but I think we're seeing lots of that. Oh shit. We're seeing lots of evidence and proof. Damn. We're seeing lots of evidence and proof of that being an issue on that platform as well. Social media in general. I don't think YouTube makes it easy. It comes down to, for me, what I feel like I can do as one of the quote unquote bigger creators in Authortube, which is to shout people out, let people know about live streams that are happening, whether it's on my Instagram stories, the people I recommend in videos being more people of color. But it also falls to the viewer to, if you are looking through your subscriptions and you're noticing that there's like all white Authortubers that you're watching, you need to actively try and seek that out and change it. It's unfortunate that it falls to that level, that YouTube's algorithm works that way, absolutely. Yeah, that fucking sucks. But if you're not actively seeking it out, then that is aiding the problem. I know that I can also always do more. Iron Man 3 is the best Iron Man. What is wrong with you? Let's go ahead and get to the is Authortube dying thing. All of the navel gazing about whether or not Authortube is dead is only interesting to creators themselves and not their viewers. It's also kind of disrespectful. If it was dead, how come we're watching the 6th video on this topic? Oh man, yeah, Authortube's not dead. That's silly. I can search Authortube newbie tag and see like, I don't know however many people who posted that tag in a week's time. It used to be like one person. Authortube's not dead. It's only growing. I don't really have much more to say about this that hasn't already been said before. I do find it interesting, of course, because I am a creator and I think the topic's fascinating. But I also come from like booktube viewership world where the talking about the community is just as much part of the community as talking about books. So I always find these conversations fascinating. fascinating. I'm sorry. I'm part of the problem. This might just be me, but I feel like someone doesn't need to be a reader to be a writer. Many different forms of entertainment can inspire and motivate writers. The common advice being, you want to be a better writer? Read a lot. You know, we talked before about analyzing things in depth. I think the same can be true for learning to be a good storyteller through any of storytelling methods, but learning to be a good writer of novels, I do think you need to read a lot of novels as well. There's an inherent difference in the structure. You don't have a visual medium to work with when it's novels, and so that requires an entirely different way of writing. The big A, Amazon, seems to favor only those titles where the author pays them all their money back in the form of advertising that amounts to a bidding war. Yes, Amazon has definitely become pay to play, which leads into some of the other unpopular opinions discussing financial privilege. And I think it's really unfortunate because now it doesn't feel like people can necessarily stumble upon your book in the same way that they were once able to. Goalposts are always changing in publishing. I don't have anything against Disney adults, but like, why are all authortubers Disney adults? It's like, I get it, you had a great childhood, congratulations. I think this is so funny. For what it's worth, most of the Disney adults I know did not have a great childhood, and that plays into it. So I think the takeaway from that's interesting. I'll say for me, it's one of the first places that I learned story was through Disney movies and Disney animation, and I think they oftentimes do a great job with that. And I love going to the parks because I really feel immersed, and it helps me focus on other parts of world building, which I think is fascinating. But I do agree, it is a strange thing that lots of us seem to have in common. After having been in the critique and querying game for a while, you can actually 100% judge how good a book will be based on the first chapter alone. Oh shit. I definitely see people who read the slush piles would be able to tell if something's at least going to be interesting, if a writer can hook a reader. I think that's sometimes scary for writers where we're like, oh my god, so much hinges on our first chapter, but of course it does. I'm so DNF friendly that I know this firsthand, that if I want to make something entertaining for myself, I better fucking get on it. Sometimes my opinions change as the book goes along. It might have had a really awesome first chapter and intro, and then the rest of the book's kind of like, man, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. But I can see, just based off of quality and at least the hook, I do think that that's generally true. Underwriters are outliners in denial. I can't even get everyone to agree on what an outline is and what it should consist of. I disagree as an underwriter. But thank you for your unpopular opinion. I would love to know how many people agree with that. What does that make overwriters then? It takes more perseverance than talent. I also agree with this. I don't know if it's unpopular. I think it's one of those where in an ideal world, we would love for the most talented people to be the most successful. Unfortunately, that's never been how the world works. I do think sometimes the most talented people do become great successes, and that is wonderful, but I don't think it's by and large true. I do think perseverance and keeping at it is ultimately what will get you there, whether that's in terms of learning your craft and persevering even when it's hard, whether that's continuing to query, you know, your 10th book even if all the other ones haven't worked before. This is gonna sound weird. I don't know if anyone else has done this, but I've tried to take out the use of the word talent from my vocabulary, or I try to include you're so skilled, because I think a lot of people use talent as just like, oh, well, they're so talented, like they're so amazing, that's just how they are. They were just born so much better at this thing or whatever. When that seems to, at least colloquially, not take into account how many hours they've put into mastering their craft or whatever. So I try to add in that you're so skilled, and yeah, that's a complete aside, but that's how I feel. It takes more than passion for writing / the author lifestyle to make it on the platform. Without decent editing skills and something new to bring to the table, one might as well not try. Yes, no. It depends how you want to define as make it on the platform. I think that much like publishing in some respects, making it on the platform of Authortube is just kind of a crapshoot. There's a lot of luck involved. Obviously being skilled at editing or, you know, talented at coming up with new ideas or whatever else will help you, but the healthy dose of luck you need, just like with publishing, is it feels pretty extreme sometimes. That being said, one might as well not try, I don't agree with. So if you just want to quote unquote make it on the platform and you don't edit well or edit at all, and you don't have something new or different, then yeah, you're probably not going to quote unquote make it. If that is the end goal, I don't know that that should ever be the end goal for something as crazy, when a crazy amount of luck's involved, so much as you have to enjoy the process of the thing. But much like writing, I think you should still try. You have your own very unique perspective. No one's going to tell a story like you would tell it, even if we're given the same prompts, right? No one's going to do a writing vlog like you because you're going through your own unique story, your own life. You will inevitably have, you know, tips and tricks you've learned in the past that have worked for you that you can share. So I'd still recommend to everyone, if you want to try to make Authortube videos, to try to make Authortube videos. Just don't have the make it as the goal. Being incapable of outlining a novel and preferring the process of pantsing are two very different things. The former shows a lack of discipline. The latter focuses on enjoyment. Enjoying the process is the most important thing, but you should be able to outline. Again, we need to debate what all encompasses outlining. If it can be as simple as like a sentence on the beginning, middle, and end, I think most people would be able to do that. I do think for discovery writers, along the way, you're learning different things and that can completely change a story potentially, and maybe that's part enjoyment. I could give someone an outline of my idea before I write it, but oftentimes it will look very different to what the actual zero draft ends up being. And usually if these are on two opposite ends, I'll probably end up in the next draft being about here. So still taking into account more of the outline than my zero draft did, but like really taking in a lot of what made the zero draft new and fun, and I learned more about the characters and stuff. So on the one hand, I agree, but I don't agree. Most of the writing advice givers online these days can't walk their talk in their own prose, but we'll never know because a lot of them never actually publish. Some people said in different variations of this that this was an Authortube problem. I was actually watching Rachel Wright's video recently where she was saying how if you got advice from someone and that advice helped you, it doesn't necessarily matter if they're able to implement their own advice, like you got something out of it. I think it's a amalgamation of issues, or at least from what I saw in this unpopular opinion survey, which is authortubers rehashing advice that they've already heard and we've already seen a million other places. And then also when they go to publish a book, it sounds like they didn't even understand any of the advice they were then talking about. I personally have authors that I've looked up to because I love the way they talk about writing and I like their advice they've given, and I haven't necessarily read their work in part because I don't want to ruin the illusion that I have. So I completely, I agree with this one. I actually stopped consuming writing advice from Authortube just because those videos aren't interesting to me when it's done in like a listicle format, though I do personally get stuff out of watching other people's vlogs where they're not trying to teach me a lesson, but watching them learn helps me learn kind of thing. So I think it can be both. I think it can be what Rachel said, that if you get good advice from someone and you're able to implement it, it doesn't necessarily matter what they do on their own. But also if you're going to constantly give advice, you need to expect for people to go and look at your stuff and be like, are they even following that advice? And to judge you differently or accordingly. I hate bright red covers. I have nowhere to put them on my shelves. Maybe that's shallow. It is, but I love it. I do want to see a picture of your bookshelf then. Do you organize by rainbow and just don't have enough red? Or are you like monochromatic? Like what does your shelves look like? This person also says, sometimes I'll notice two books I like come from the same publishing imprint, but when I try to look up a list of books from that imprint, I can't find it. Like the imprint will have a website, but the website won't have a page of all the books they've done, and I think they should. Like if I could look through the entire back catalog of any publishing imprint, that would be so cool. I cannot agree with this enough. That would be so cool. The fact that a lot of them don't have it still is upsetting. Authortube is often just an excuse to procrastinate writing for both the creator and viewer. There were a lot of comments like this. One that I especially thought was interesting was doing Authortube hinders rather than helps the creators writing the majority of the time. It is a totally different job that has to do with performance and entertainment, and if you are not careful, it could very easily lower the quality of your writing. Again, I think this one's fascinating. I think all of these come into it with you only have a set amount of time to do your writing, and Authortube is taking out a portion of that time. I think that's the mindset, but I don't always know that this scenario is true. I think some people have, I like to write an hour a day, and oh, I still have 3 hours of my day after work, so maybe I'll do a video. I do agree that becoming successful on Authortube, besides a healthy dose of luck, like anything else in the arts or in the entertainment world, is a different skill set than writing. I think in theory you should be an entertaining storyteller. Editing is a skill, and I noticed that you know, maybe sometimes people will go on and not cut themselves, and sometimes I personally wonder, I'm like, do you also not edit your story? Because like clearly there's a, you should have shortened this or something. I'm sure people can say that for my videos too. And watching Authortube, I do that not when I planned on writing, but just when I was like, I feel like having some entertainment and listening to other people talk about writing. Watch my friends, you know? But that's also why I try not to open up YouTube while I'm writing, because I will be distracted by Authortube just as much as any of my other creators, and that is definitely a form of procrastination for me, so that needs to stay down when it is definitely writing time. I watch live streams to see a specific person, so when they have repeated guests I don't like, it sucks and ruins the experience for me. Yeah, I definitely have people that I love watching and then people that I don't enjoy watching as much, and sometimes it will make me appreciate the person I don't enjoy more, but oftentimes it'll just, I'm like, I don't vibe with this, which is fine. It's okay not to vibe with something, but it is unfortunate when my fave is doing that. I'm like, no. Spoiler-free book reviews are bland and generic unless it's a rant, but I'm never convinced that people didn't just tolerate the book because it seems like every review is the same, just with different genre terminology sometimes. The world building was so lush and the characters just come to life on the page. I agree with this too. Spoiler-free reviews are so difficult. I honestly don't like them. I'd rather be spoiled. There's only so many terms you can describe something without giving stuff away. There are some people who do a really good job. I'm going to link down below some of my favorite booktubers who I think do a good job of doing spoiler-free book reviews, but agreed. A lot of people like creating videos more than they like writing. Authortube, I think, also gives you a more immediate sense of satisfaction and validation. Unless you write poems or short stories where you can complete things more readily, you will more quickly get to the end of a video and you can put that out there, and that feels like a sense of creation and I have done it, versus, you know, writing 2 chapters when you still have 30 more chapters to go, you know? So I think that's a big part of it as well, but this was a common theme. I think Authortube also feels like a place you can complain. So when the writing's going well, you're not always like, the writing's going so well, because you're writing. So when the writing's going poorly, it's just like, I need someone to vent to, and I'm gonna vent to the camera and then I'm gonna put it out there, and I need validation that other people think this is hard too. And so when you're in that mindset, I think more videos are created. I think that happens in all of life. So I can also see how that might give the impression that some people don't like writing when more of their videos are about the negative parts of it. I'm spitballing. When people say that one of their author dreams is to have their book adapted into a film or TV show, I start to suspect that they don't actually love novels as a medium and instead just want the attention and popularity that comes with a successful franchise. Oh shit. As someone who would love for my stuff to one day be adapted, I think the step that's missing here is that I want so many people to love what I've written so much that they beg the movie producers or the TV show producers to create a live action or a animated version of the thing. So that's the bit. I want it to be loved and enjoyed. I want my characters to be consumed and felt and read, and like people to be wowed by my plot. Like I want all of these things in this dream world so much that this happens. And it often feels like this only happens if there's a huge fan base. So I think it's more that. All right. And I think that is it on these unpopular opinions. I had a lot of fun reading through them and the unfiltered takes on a lot of them, even perhaps especially when I did not agree with them myself. But please do comment down below if you didn't have a chance to fill out the form. Let me know what your unpopular opinion is. Let me know what you think of any of these unpopular opinions. And let me know what your favorite weird food combination is. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye. Do you want to say hi to the camera and then swiftly say bye to the camera? You want to say hi? Are you a little Vinci kitty? Okay, come on.